Before the creation of the world as we know it, before the first mountain stood, before the seas stretched their borders, before mankind took its very first breath, there was already a tale unfolding in the eternal realm of heaven. It is a story older than history itself, one that speaks of brilliance, pride, rebellion, and a catastrophic downfall. This is the story of Lucifer, the brightest of all angels, whose light once shone brighter than the stars, yet whose pride led to his fall from glory and his transformation into the eternal adversary in the very beginning. God created the heavens, and within them he filled his kingdom with countless beings of light. There were the cherubim, guardians of mysteries too sacred for the human mind to grasp. There were the angels, messengers, who carried God's will to the farthest reaches of creation. And then there were the archangels, the highest of all, commanders of heavenly armies, entrusted with divine authority and wisdom. Among these exalted beings, one stood above them all. His name was Lucifer. Lucifer was no ordinary angel. He was the crown jewel of God's creation, described by the prophet Ezekiel as perfect in thy ways from the day thou wast created. He was adorned with splendor, his beauty radiant like precious stones, his wisdom unmatched, his power unquestioned. His very name, Lucifer, meaning light bringer or morning star, captured his brilliance. He was said to walk in the very presence of God, a being second only to the Almighty himself, dazzling and flawless, a symbol of everything glorious in heaven. But it was within that perfection that a shadow began to form. For where there is greatness, there can also be pride. Lucifer looked upon his own reflection and saw not the gift of God's hand, but a crown that he believed was his by right. Day after day, his pride grew. He began to imagine himself not as a servant of the Most High, but as his equal or even his replacement. The prophet Isaiah captures his ambition in haunting words. I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High, no longer content to bow before the throne. Lucifer wanted the throne for himself. He, the brightest star of heaven, would no longer reflect God's light. He would become the source of it. But Lucifer was not reckless. He knew such a rebellion could not be won alone. With cunning unmatched by any other, he began to whisper to his fellow angels. He told them that God's authority was flawed, that the order of heaven was unjust, and that under his rule, they would share power and glory. Many resisted his words, remaining steadfast in their loyalty to their Creator, but others listened. Slowly, persuasion turned to loyalty, and loyalty turned to allegiance. In time, a vast host of angels, perhaps a third of all in heaven, declared their support for Lucifer, believing his brilliance to be a light worth following, and so heaven became divided. A kingdom of eternal harmony was now fractured by pride. The stage was set for the greatest conflict the universe had ever seen. Revelation describes the battle that followed in vivid terms. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Michael, another mighty archangel, rose as God's champion. Where Lucifer fought with arrogance and ambition, Michael fought with faith and loyalty. The clash was immense, a war, not of mortal armies, but of celestial forces. Light against darkness, truth against deception. Lucifer, in his pride, transformed into a great dragon, a terrible creature of power and fury. With his angels, he stormed the heavens, seeking to seize the throne. But, for all his strength, he could not overcome Michael and the armies of God. The rebellion that he believed would crown him instead exposed his weakness. Pride had deceived him into believing he was invincible, but the truth was far different. And then came the fall. Revelation tells us, the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil, and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. The morning star, once radiant and glorious, was hurled from heaven, stripped of his beauty, stripped of his title, stripped even of his name. No longer was he Lucifer, the light bringer. He became Satan, the adversary, the deceiver, the enemy of all that is good. His fall was not merely a defeat, it was the loss of everything he once was. From the heights of heaven to the depths of disgrace, he fell like lightning, as Christ himself would later say, "I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven." His pride had promised him a throne, but his arrogance delivered him only ruin. But Satan's story did not end in exile. Cast down to earth, his rage turned against the crown of God's new creation, mankind. In the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve were given paradise, a life of harmony, and only one command: not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Seeing his chance for vengeance, Satan came in the form of a serpentor, perhaps spoke through one whispering doubt and temptation into Eve's ear. "Surely you will not die," he said. "For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God." It worked. Eve ate, Adam followed, and mankind fell. Just as Lucifer had once sought to be like the Most High, Adam and Eve sought the knowledge of gods, and in that single act of disobedience, sin entered the world. Though Genesis never names the serpent as Lucifer directly, Revelation later connects Satan to that ancient serpent, solidifying the link in Christian tradition. From the beginning, his rebellion against God became intertwined with humanity's downfall. Yet, the tale of Lucifer is not without mystery. For centuries, scholars have debated the origins of his story. The name Lucifer itself appears only once in the Bible in Isaiah 14:12. In the original Hebrew, the word is Hello Ben Sheker, meaning morning star or son of the dawn. Some argue that Isaiah was not speaking of a fallen angel at all, but of a Babylonian king whose arrogance and persecution of Israel led to his downfall. The imagery of the morning star, which shines brightly only to fade with the sunrise, may have been a poetic metaphor for this king's rise and fall. When the Bible was later translated into Latin, Hello became Lucifer, the Latin word for morning star or Venus. Over time, Christian tradition merged Isaiah's metaphor with Ezekiel's lament for the king of Tyre, who was described as being perfect in beauty before his corruption, and with Revelation's dragon, casting these various figures into a single narrative, the rebellion and fall of the greatest angel, Lucifer. By the time of the King James Bible, the name Lucifer had become synonymous with Satan himself. Whether one believes Lucifer was originally a metaphor for mortal kings, or the literal story of a fallen angel, the meaning of the tale remains profound. It is a warning about the dangers of pride and arrogance. Proverbs 16:18 declares, "Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall." Lucifer believed he could ascend above God, yet his arrogance cast him lower than he ever imagined. His beauty became corruption, his wisdom became deceit, his light became darkness. But even in his defeat, his story echoes in our own lives. Like Lucifer, we too can fall into pride. We too can believe that our strength, our success, or our wisdom make us untouchable. Yet just as his rebellion ended in ruin, so too can arrogance lead to our downfall. His story reminds us to remain humble, to recognize the source of our blessings, and to understand that no one, no matter how radiant, is greater than the truth that sustains them. Lucifer's fate is sealed. Revelation 20:10 foretells that the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night, forever and ever. The one who once sought to rise above the stars will end, not in glory, but in eternal torment. And so the story of Lucifer, the brightest angel turned adversary, stands as one of the most powerful lessons in all of Scripture. It is not only the tale of a celestial is a mirror for humanity itself. Pride blinds, ambition without humility destroys, and rebellion against the very source of life leads only to ruin. Lucifer sought to ascend to heaven. Instead, he fell to the depths. His story endures as a warning to all that no matter how high we climb, without humility, we too may fall.